The artists in this show are asking us a number of questions, and I think this is the strength of this show and strength of the selections that the judges have made, is that we're confronted with a number of questions about painting. For example, this artist here is not using the conventional mediums associated with painting, but instead is using fabrics that replicate the textures that we might find in a very heavily built up painting. We have paintings centered in objects juxtapositioned with what we would associate with design, through to abstraction, loose, expressive marks, figurative, through to the abstraction of the figure and more surrealist in nature, through to works addressing identity and sexuality politics, through to an attempt to challenge our thinking around painting itself and whether or not painting can also be a medium that tests our perception of what painting might be. Should painting be immediately obvious to us? The challenge for us is we're not sure whether we're looking at a painting or not. Some will see a photograph and others will see a painting. And it's that ambiguity that creates interest for us, that draws us closer and closer to try and detect brush marks, to try and arrive at an answer to that question. Are we looking at a painting or are we looking at a photograph? We like to think that we know what painting is, and our expectations are that a painting is something that represents something in our world, or it's perhaps an abstraction of something in our world that we are familiar with and understand. But what does it mean when an artist takes the material itself that painters work on and starts to work with that and starts to reveal the characteristics of that material, being linen or canvas, and now we see through that canvas and the wall behind becomes part of that work. In fact, perhaps the painting itself starts to frame and draw attention to the space behind. I think art is quiet, and particularly drawing and painting, and in our world it can be really, really noisy, and I think art can be a quiet, contemplative space. This is a really good example of an artwork for me that slows down the pace of the world, the busyness of life. It creates a quiet moment in a quiet space. Its frame, in terms of its scale, is quite large, and so the moment that it creates allows me to fall within its frame. And I talk about art suspending us in a moment where time is no longer important, but what is important is being present within the moment, the pocket that a work creates for us. To connect with those things that remind us of who we are as human beings. And I think painting has that power to draw us in those ways and remind us of our humanness. And for me, this is a good example of a work that has done that for me. And I hope that the audience that gets to spend time with it may have similar experiences.